Welcome to the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. It's a spectacular and brilliant place to hold the fourth of the 5 rounds of the 2020 GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Series, and margins are going to be tiny between success and failure. The drivers are going to have to be at their very best on this wonderful old school circuit. Second race at Misano was led away by Johnny Adam, running a Pro-Am Aston Martin from pole position. Challenged down into the first corner by Patrick Kujala in the red and black Ferrari. Good start by Dries van Tor, but getting busy behind. Very, very tricky the first 2 corners of the Italian circuit. Nip and tuck. Let's ride on board with Raffaele Marciello, looking for space, and space very much at a premium through those first 2, 3, 4 twists, and a couple of cars getting pushed a little bit wide. But the first 3 were starting to make a break. It was Adam in the Aston Martin leading, Kujala hanging on but coming under increasing attacks, and the attacks further back. That was Konstantin Tereshchenko getting up a little too close and personal. And then Dries van Tor, brilliant dive up into turn 6, but ran a little bit deep, and the Ferrari of Patrick Kujala got itself back into second place. Then agony at the pit stop, a slow getaway, undoing a lot of the gains for the number 14 Lamborghini. It did get going again. In the charge up to the pit stops, Raffaele Marciello getting a little bit loose over the curbing there as he gave chase. No problems at all for Dries van Tor, handing over to Charles Weerts. That was just leaving the pits, followed by Timo Bogoslawski, who'd taken over number 88 AKA ASP Mercedes. And then a big, wide, dusty moment out of turn 11 for Frank Bird. He managed to get back onto the track, still in the lead of the silver class. Johnny Adam came in from the lead of the race to hand over to Alexander West. Don't forget, that's a Pro-Am entry. Now, how's this for battling? This is Frank Bird on the inside and Lucas Stoltz being pushed wide on the outside. He picked up a puncture. The stewards certainly took a look at that. Valentin Pierberg really pressing on in the Pro-Am class, giving chase. But out front, it was Charles Weerts completing the job for win number 3 for Weerts and Van Tor in only 6 races. And in behind, the Pro-Am battle was this tight on the final lap. Pierberg coming forward, catching right up with Alexander West, who turned out had a slow puncture. But at the line, what was the gap? 0.001 of a second between them. Pro-Am victory, but it was outright victory to Weerts and Van Tor. Dries van Tor and Charles Weerts arrive in Kent with their team WRT still fired up by winning at Le Mans, but they are way clear on points, and they could possibly even wrap it up here this weekend.
We don't have to take stupid risk, especially considering the fact that the weekend is so compact. So now it's going to be a matter of scoring points, and okay, if we can get a podium or even a win, that's for sure going to be great. But this is not our main targets. We just want to at least keep the same gap or even increase our lead. And if this means being twice P5 or something like this, then we would not take any risk for that.
The lone McLaren entered at Brands Hatch is brought here by local team Jota Sport for a pair of British drivers, Oliver Wilkinson and Ben Barnicoat, and they're really fired up by a strong run to 7th place in the Spa 24 Hours.
Really excited to be here. It's for a British driver to be racing at Brands Hatch is quite a big thing. I think we've shown some really good progress with Jota and McLaren throughout the season, especially coming off the back of Spa 24 where we finished 7th.
Raffaele Marciello comes here in 2nd place in the championship, and he knows, as does Timo Bogoslawski, they need almost a mishap from their rivals, Weerts and Van Tor.
We have to hope that Audi they have some kind of problem and they lose some points. Because we had that 0 in Zandvoort, and I think this one is quite big in the championship. So I mean, we have to do well, try to win the race, to score a lot of points, and we have to hope the Audi they have sort of any problem. I know it's bad to say, but it's the way it has to be.
Long-time Mercedes racer Adam Christodoulou returns to the Sprint Series for the first time since 2018. This weekend he's racing for Ram Racing, along with the driver from Macau, Kevin C, who's making his Brands Hatch debut.
It's great being back. It's one championship that drivers always aim to be a part of. It is the pinnacle of GT3 racing, and so always pushing to get be part of the GT World Challenge. So it's good to be joining the Ram boys and Kevin for this one-off round.
Garage 59 has brought a pair of Aston Martin Vantages to Brands Hatch, and 4-time British GT champion Johnny Adam shares its Pro-Am Challenger with Alexander West, hoping to win by slightly more than the 1,000th of a second they managed at Misano.
Looking forward to this weekend, a home event for Aston Martin and Garage 59, and a circuit I know well. It's one of my firm favourites, is Brands Hatch GP, and we'll see. We've come off a great result with Misano and Sprint with Alex, and we want to carry that momentum into this weekend. So yeah, we've got one aim this weekend, and that's a few podiums.
Ricardo Fella and Alex Fontana have a really sizable lead in the Silver Cup category. and really just need to keep their nose clean. But actually, they want victory outright in this race at Brands Hatch. That's the sort of thing that would float their boat. And for Lamborghini, it's a case of rediscovering their form.
We are still pushing. I mean, this is a track which should fit our car quite well. So yeah, let's see. I think the decision will be made in Valencia. So I think it's important that we keep close, and then yeah, we will see.
British racer Frank Bird will be looking forward to competing on home ground at Brands Hatch in his second season since stepping up from single-seaters to GT3. And the 22-year-old shares his Team WRT Audi with Japanese racer Ryuichiro Tomita, who's having his first visit to the Kent circuit.
A little bit different for everyone coming to the UK to race. I haven't had a home race for 2 years, so yeah, really looking forward to this. And yeah, hopefully we have a good weekend. I think the Audi should suit this circuit well, so we'll see how the weekend goes. I couldn't be with a better team, to be honest. They've got so much experience everywhere. They always give us a perfect car for the weekend, so it's just down to the driver to do a good job. And yeah, so looking forward to the weekend.
Last year, Chris Froggatt scooped the Pro-Am honours with Eddie Cheever III. This year, he's racing with the experienced Italian racer Giorgio Roda in the Silver Cup class. And though he's a British racer extraordinarily, Chris Froggatt has never competed at Brands Hatch before. He's got to learn, and fast.
In sprint, it's going to be tough for us to really have a really good result in terms of championship now. We're quite far behind with some unfortunate results before, so we're really looking forward, looking to have a podium, and that would be a great way to sort of celebrate a home race, and that's the ambition.
The team, CMR, is French, but the car, a Bentley Continental, is very British indeed, and it's always a crowd pleaser. This year, Ulysses de Pauw and Pierre-Alexandre Jean will be looking to equal or better their season best result of third place overall, and Ulysses knows the circuit very well from his days in F3.
There is quite a lot of fast corner, especially around the back on the GP track, and the Bentley is usually quite good on the fast corner, so I'm looking forward, and I hope we can achieve something good.
Points continue to be gathered for the Fanatec GT World Challenge powered by AWS. 7 manufacturers fighting for global glory in the 3 championships around the planet. And it really is tightening up towards the end of the season. Let's take a look at the scores as they stand. And leading the way, but only by a very small margin, it's Mercedes ahead of Lamborghini, and in third place it's Audi Sport. But points changing with every single race. Let's see who wins. It's a warm Sunday morning at Brands Hatch, and the first of 2 races today for the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS Sprint Cup. One this morning, one this afternoon, and the track, John Watson, is made for racing. It's made for tight action. Great to have fans coming in and occupying the grandstands and all the edges of the circuit, so it's got a special atmosphere this morning.
Well, first of all, great to be back at Brands Hatch, and also had to sit in commentary booth, look across to South Bank and see all the fans who park their cars. And of course, the tradition here at Brands Hatch is when the races get underway or the winner's doing a lap of honour, everybody gets back in their car and is on the horn as loud as they can blow it.
But we have dark clouds overhead. We had these yesterday, and they had a habit of just dropping a little bit of rain at inopportune moments, particularly at the far end of the circuit. We'll keep an eye on those. This race is an hour long, but look down to the grid. We've got 14 rows of cars, 28 cars packed so tightly together. And the 2 championship challengers, Timo Bogoslawski on one side of the grid, and on the outside, the WRT Audi with Charles Weerts. Behind them is the car that was fastest in qualifying. We'll come to that right now. The Jota McLaren, the one McLaren in the field, docked 2 places for obstructing another car during, it was on its outlap when it was warming up tyres, and Ben Barnicoat got pinged, so he was so elated with pole position. But there is the green and white Jota car on the second row.
Okay, disappointment for the Jota team, but actually starting a second row of the grid on the inside behind pole sitter is not the worst place to be starting. All Ben Barnicoat needs to do is make sure that when the race goes green that he sticks to the back of the 88 Mercedes and hopefully can occupy the bit of real estate that you want to have going into Paddock Hill Corner.
Well, Mad Panda Motorsport is here, and a Mad Panda up on the observing the action. That's just on the descent from Druids. Right, as you look down back at the grid, you can see the start-finish straight. A isn't straight, and B, it isn't flat, and a lot of the drivers have a preferred side, and certainly Charles Weerts wasn't overly excited to be promoted from third on the grid to second, because that puts him on the outside going into Paddock Hill Bend. Let's take a look at the order on the grid. Timo Bogoslawski, the 88 Mercedes on pole. Charles Weerts, the dominant championship leader, in the number 32 Audi will start on the uphill side. Ben Barnicoat took pole, but his McLaren will be starting third. Lucas Stolz, good to see them back on form for TalkSport WRT, will be fourth. Ricardo Feller leading Silver Club Challenger in fifth, and Pierre-Alexandre Jean, also a silver rank driver in his Bentley, on the outside of row 3. Row 4, Consta Lapalainen, the second of the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis, and Patrick Kujala, who goes better and better in the Rinaldi Racing Ferrari. And then Ezequiel Perez-Compok, he of Mad Panda Motorsport in his Mercedes, alongside Finnish racer Yusuf Pohaka in the second of the TalkSport WRT Mercedes. Aurélien Panis, the better of the Sansalot Racing Audis, and Frank Bird looking to shine on home ground, his first home race for 2 years. Chris Froggatt in the silver class this year will start 13th in his Ferrari, and Norbert Siedler in the third of the Emil Frey Racing Lamborghinis will start 14th. And Konstantin Tereshchenko, expect him to make progress. The Acura ASP Mercedes look very good, and Sansalot Racing second car, Leo Roussel, down in 16th place. Petro Umbarescu in the third of the ACA ASP Mercedes starts in 17th, alongside the Attempto Audi of Alex Acker. And then Thomas Tuchel had a couple of mishaps in practice and qualifying, will start 19th. And Benjamin Goethe, he had a problem right at the start of yesterday. Expect progress from the young Dane. Max Hofer on board for the first time this weekend in the Sprint Cup for Attempto Racing, alongside Julian Apostolos in the one Porsche in the field. Miguel Ramos, top qualifier in the Pro-Am class in 23rd, alongside the second Bentley from CMR for Nelson Ponciatici. And then Louis Michiels, he shares with Andrea Bertolini. That AF Corsa Ferrari starts 25th, alongside Valentin Pierberg in the SPS Automotive Performance Mercedes that just lost out at Misano. Then Alex West, who won at Misano by 1,000th of a second, will start 27th. And Kevin C, racer from Macau, joining the championship this weekend with a Ram Racing Mercedes. 28 cars, and for the likes of Jules Gagnon, Raffaele Marciello, Jim Pla, all having a bit of a smile down at the ACA ASP garage, looking as though they're coming to watch the racing. But don't forget, they'll be taking over at the pit stops. So, John, how do you read this ahead of the race?
Well, it's always very tense at the start into Paddock Hill. I call it corner, it's actually Paddock Hill Bend, because as you climb up the hill, you can't see the apex of Paddock itself, so you have to anticipate it. 2 cars wide, maybe even 3 cars trying to squeeze up the middle. Always a very tense moment. And then once you've executed your exit out of Paddock Hill Bend, you've got to then contend with Druids. That's the long, tight right-hand hairpin. So it can be a messy start. Let's hope we get all 28 cars in this field through the first 2 corners cleanly.
And what really always strikes me at Brands Hatch, they just seem to be even closer than ever together as they come round in their 2x2 formation. Of course, all eyes will be as they sweep onto the start-finish straight on the starting gantry. The formation lap is nearly over, and looks like Raffaele Marciello is going to get a good start from pole position. The lights go green, he's blasted, and it looks as though the Barnicoat McLaren will get into second place. Does so easily. Lucas Stolz now up the inside of Charles Weerts. Charles Weerts sitting on a very large points lead. They want to consolidate, but he doesn't want to lose many more places. And Patrick Kujala trying to take a sweep around the outside, getting put on the grass, and wide he went, edge wide by Weerts up at Druids, very tight, but actually no contact.
Well, Ben Barnicoat's trying to squeeze through, get past the Mercedes, and he's had a couple of little bumps from the rear as the field is so compact as they come down now through Graham Hill Bend, beginning to finally string out a little the short straight that leads into Surtees. That's the late apex corner that leads then onto the quickest part of the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, down Pilgrim's Drop.
You could hardly put a piece of paper between all of the cars. Some are 2x2 as they approach Pilgrim's Drop. Side by side they go, but up front we've got a challenge. Ben Barnicoat, A, past the Mercedes of Timo Bogoslawski, but B, around the outside into Hawthorns. That is 2 points on the chart. So Lucas Stolz also trying, oh, dearie me, up onto the curbing on the inside, but Bogoslawski puts Stolz wide, giving a chance for those behind. But up front, thank you very much for Ben Barnicoat. He looks like he's going to escape now.
Yes, and again, but you can see what's happened, that the position that Lucas Stolz had just gained has been lost once again to Timo Bogoslawski, who's been having to defend heavily from Ben Barnicoat. That one's lost. Barnicoat's up the road and gone, but Lucas Stolz is still behind the 88 Mercedes, and he will want to execute a pass as quickly as possible to get clear. And of course, further back behind the Mercedes, we've got the 32 Audi. That was the car that was starting on the second, on the front of the grid with Charles Weerts behind the wheel. So still very tight. The Bentley running close behind the Audi into Paddock Hill Bend.
Well, that's an extraordinary escape. 2.3, nearly 2.4 seconds to good for Ben Barnicoat. He was very upset to lose pole position, but he's making amends now up the inside. Frank Bird showing that he really wants to get into the top 10. He started 12th and certainly making very good progress with Team WRT. He's up into about 8th place. Yes, it is 8th, so now he's gone past Buhaka. Chris Froggatt pressing on in the middle of the pack to Sky Tempesta Racing, his first race despite being a British racer here at Brands Hatch. So it's super tight, apart from the gap between first and second, 2.8 to 2.4 seconds and stretching all the time.
At Brands Hatch, short straights, quickish corners, easy to defend. But look, the gap Ben Barnicoat has got, he's just opening it up by the corner, not even by the lap. So he has picked up the pace. He's fastest in Sector 1 already. And still, Thomas Boguslawski has managed to keep Lukas Stolz, who is capable of being quicker in a single lap, but hasn't got the ability to find a way around the number 88 Mercedes.
Yeah, last time around through the corner they've just gone through there, Westfield, it was very, very tricky for Stolz, finding himself on the outside. Could you get diminishing returns as the track drops into the dip there, into Dingle-Dell? But right now, you look at the long shot out of Stirling's, you can only just see the McLaren coming out of the dip through clearways into Clark Curve, one of the best of the rest, with Boguslawski followed by Stolz only just going under the bridge. They're now coming into the bowl, and if it was 2.4 seconds last time around, it's going to be much, much more. Ben Barnicoat really stretching his legs in the McLaren.
And Lukas Stolz trying to find a way past the 88 Mercedes, but the two cars got identical straight line performance. The difference is going to be in who can actually get through Paddock Bend, the quicker of the two. Stolz ought to be able to do it, ought to be able to get up alongside the 88 into Druid, but is still unable. He should have, I feel, the chance he had on that opening lap, that's a chance lost. It's going to be a lot more difficult between now and the point at which the pit lane window opens, and then drivers will be coming in for change of tyres and change of drivers.
Right, 3.5 minutes into the race, but what was 2.4 seconds has doubled. 4.8 seconds is the advantage Ben Barnicoat is enjoying in the Jota McLaren, stretching his legs in the pits. Ollie Wilkinson were going, this is going to be something special. He's going to take over around middle distance, but I've almost never seen a Sprint Cup race with such a lead at the end of 2 laps.
Well, it's this, the cork in the bottle is the 88 Mercedes, and that's the cause of this backing up all the way down through the field. Everyone else behind, their momentum is being dictated to by the car running in second place.
Yeah, so magic for Jota, the local team from just south of Tunbridge Wells in France, and they've got to keep this going to the finish. But this is a dream situation for Ben Barnicoat. 14th place, Chris Froggatt riding on board with him, and so many corners get cut just in front, and that was Sheen Curve. Drivers have to, on a quick lap, be cutting the curbing on the inside and then get the car's position balanced for Stirling's. And you've always said, John, exit speed from Stirling's absolutely vital.
Well, it's a short straight from Stirling's down into clearways, which then leads on to the second fastest part of the racetrack here. The run, what they call main straight, but in fact it's a very shallow curve all the way from the exit of clearways here into Paddock Bend. Lukas Stolz has found himself, the worst thing can happen. He's allowing the pace of the 88 Mercedes to actually control the pace of the number 6 Mercedes, and either you drop back a little bit, pick up the speed. But let's look and see, this is the opening lap, Bruce.
Well, absolute intent from Ben Barnicoat. Up Hawthorns Hill, he had more momentum coming out of Surtees, used the slipstream from Timo Boguslawski around the outside. This is it from on board, looking back from Boguslawski's number 88 ACA ASP Mercedes. I'm coming. Which side are you going? Around the outside, that's all I'm offering you. Oh, but your speed is so much in the McLaren that I can't even hold you back. And then suddenly, this is where Boguslawski got a little bit rattled, because he was slightly compromised into Hawthorns and then hit the curbs on the inside at Westfield, and Stolz very nearly took second place.
I think Stolz actually did momentarily get that position, but look behind is the Bentley now trying to find a way past Charles Vance in the 32 Audi. So Boguslawski doing everything correctly. He's not doing anything that I would consider to be inappropriate. He's not weaving around. He's just using the pace his car has got. Remember, this is the car that was on pole position at time set by Raffaele Marcello. So we know the car is a quick car. And Thomas Boguslawski, they've been not as quick as Raffaele Marcello, but quick enough to keep Lukas Stolz in the number 6 Mercedes not able to make any attack other than that opening lap.
Right, it went out to 6.3 seconds, the advantage Ben Barnicoat had over Timo Boguslawski. With 4 laps completed, it's out to 7.6 seconds. So this is building margins that you very, very rarely find in the Sprint Cup. The car running in 4th place is the championship leader, Charles Weerts. He survived the first few corners, which was vital. They just want to score points, but this is extraordinary, the escape. Almost turning into Surtees, while Graham Hill Bend only now is being negotiated by the Mercedes. Number 88, Timo Boguslawski, and then the train of cars. It comes Lukas Stolz in 3rd, Charles Weerts in 4th, Pierre-Alexandre Jean, great run in the Bentley in 5th, and Ricardo Feller, so strong. He's challenging the Silver Cup, but at the moment the Silver Cup is being led by Alexandre Jean in car number 107, the Bentley in 5th place.
Well, there are 2 race paces here. One is for the lead McLaren of Ben Barnicoat. He's running in the middle 1 minute 25. Then there's the race pace for the rest, the 27 other cars, and they're running in the middle 1 minute 26. So it's about a second, 1.2 seconds per lap advantage to the 38 Jota McLaren, and it's just stream. Now, for the team, this is a dream result. What they don't want, what they would hate to have, is a situation where we go to a full course yellow. That's always the case when a driver or a car builds up an advantage, that then it's neutralized by a full course yellow.
Now, of course, John, what we have here is cars running nose to tail. There is no point for Charles Weerts trying to take any risk whatsoever. If he can carry on and finish in 4th place and pick up the points that go with that, that is exactly what he will do. However, looking at the front of the field, it's no problem for Ben Barnicoat. He can pick his angle, but someone will become frustrated, or will they decide to be careful? It's so hard to overtake at Brands Hatch and simply wait for the pit stop.
Now, talk about wing flexing, a wing movement. There's the wing in the Bentley, looking backwards at Ricardo Fella up in Druids. The main change is going to come ultimately when the cars dive into the pits for the mandatory pit stops. We know that WRT are excellent at executing their pit stops, getting one driver in, another out, in, then the tyre change. So most likely I would think the 32 Audi will be now focusing on when will we come in, what will be the appropriate time to quit. Will they come in early or late? My view is they're more likely to come in on the earlier side, get that pit stop carried out and put Dries van Thor on the car and see if that young Belgian driver can do anything to improve their overall position. Currently they're lying in 4th.
Right, and they're lying on a 26.5 point advantage. And of course, this is in comparison with the number 88 Mercedes. For the 88 finishes in the position it is, if Raffaele Marciello takes it over and finishes in 2nd, they'll pick up 12 points. And if the Charles Weerts Dries van Thor Audi finishes in 4th, its current position, they'll pick up 7.5. So they'll only drop 5.5 points in that difference. So it's very, very important from the WRT point of view that the 88 Mercedes doesn't win, and they really won't mind the fact that Jota Sport are streaking clear. Just waiting to see what the gap is this time. Ben Barnicoat ahead of Borger Schleisky. Will it be about 9 seconds? Just waiting to see. The race pace is still very strong at the front. It's 8.89 seconds, so getting close to 9 seconds. This is a fabulous run, a dream run for Barnicoat in the Jota McLaren.
It's actually the first time in this race that we've seen a car other than the lead McLaren have a lap that improves upon that of the 38 McLaren. So Thomas Borger-Schleifsky, he's picking up the pace. At the same time, Ben Barnicoat's pace has just dropped away fractionally. He's just got under 9 seconds advantage. I'm sure we'd like to ride that out to a 10-second, because that gives the team then a lot more opportunity to pick and choose the point where they're going to come in.
Absolutely, it gives them the options, and options are great. Now the Silver Cup battle, it's between the 107 Bentley, Pierre-Alexandre Jean in 5th, and tucked in behind Ricardo Fella, just coming into shot, the Lamborghini with the white bonnet. The sister car, the 114, Consul Lapalainen, has got the blue bonnet, just coming into the background of the shot. Patrick Kujal is looking a little bit frustrated, tucked in behind Ricardo Fella. Expect the Ferrari driver to take a look. He's been very strong in that car all season. And if you look a little bit further back down the field to 24th position, 24th through to 28th, the last 5 positions, all Pro-Am runners. Louis Michiels, the AF Corsa entry, car number 52, is just, he got the jump on the start of the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini, Miguel Ramos, so he's got it in front, but it's very, very close. Nose to tail, and a good run from Kevin C on his debut in the championship. He's got the Ram Racing Mercedes up to 3rd in class.
Yeah, I mean, it's right now it's a follow my leader race. We're not seeing any overtaking. We're not even seeing any people outside of the opening lap offering up an overtake, and that is constant. The nature of Brands Hatch's quite long corners and short straights don't give you the opportunity to get the run, to pick up even an aerodynamic slipstream up, for example, up into Paddock Hill, and then think you can get down the inside and take a position away. It's just the nature of the racetrack and the fact that these cars are all so evenly matched. The differences in lap time over the entire 28-car field is negligible.
Absolutely negligible, and you could really understand why it was so important. If you wanted to gain places, the easiest time to do it, well, it's still tricky, was the first 2 corners. Paddock Hill Bend, if you had a better start, and up to Druids, and that's where we saw the likes of Frank Bird working their way forward.
So 249 kilometres per hour for Pierre-Alexandre Jean just before he bails and gets on the brakes going into Hawthorns. Down a gear and then down another gear into Westfield. Look at the amount of inside. Oh, dear me. Ricardo Fella been very greedy indeed with the curbing on the inside. Actually got 2 wheels, 1 wheel, and again doing the same up at Sheen Curve, just trying to shorten the track as much as possible. Again, going through Stirling's. It's the curbing on the outside that's the danger zone on the exit of Stirling's. But again, 1 lap later, here we are. Nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed, but when you look at this onboard footage, it does make Brands Hatch look super old school. The track chopping and changing, dipping and diving, and just seeing the movements of the cars. And again at Stirling, just looking at Ricardo Fella hit the curb on the apex, you could see it being pushed out. Look at the speeds. Louis Michiels, fastest of all through the speed trap in his Ferrari. He's leading the Pro-Am class. He's down in 24th, but 141 kph. That's very impressive into Paddock Hill Bend.
Yes, it is. So that's in that Ferrari. I assume that's probably in their class rather than his overall. But nevertheless, you're doing it's 80 miles an hour plus at the apex. There's a try and Well, can you take a long way around the outside of Druids? It's so easy to run a car that's attempting that move, just run on that little bit more wide, but you can see a little bit of bumping from the attempt to Audi on the back of the Rothko. Benjamin Goethe under pressure, and he went off early in the running on Saturday morning. An error that looked hard to believe that a driver could have done, but anyway, here he is. The car was only mildly damaged, but under threat from the charging 66.
Yeah, well, that's Max Hofer, who's making his series debut, but he doesn't. He's only just been passed by Benjamin Goethe at the start of the lap, so it's place gained by the Rothko car. But
somebody's hit one of the corner markers. You can see all the polystyrene. As somebody's on the exit of Hawthorne just clipped that marker, and most of it's now over the racetrack.
Yeah, I didn't get to see who was doing that. I was looking for split time. So, by the way, Ben Barnicoat. Have we got a passing manoeuvre that's going to be completed? Yes, we have the 99 Audi in the hands. It's middle order. Just trying to see. That's Arkinaka. Alex Arkinaka makes the move on the Mercedes, on the Aston Martin, and gets the job done, passing Thomas Tuijala. And Ben Barnicoat continues to strip clear, 11.1 seconds to the good. There is no challenge from behind. He can just keep on stretching his legs, and that's precisely what he's doing.
Well, the gap between second and third and fourth is fundamentally, it's just academic, because we're not now seeing any challenge from the number 6 Mercedes.
So who's smashed the board on the outside of the circuit? I'm afraid there can be no denying that was unfortunate for Alex Arca. That's why he lost a position to Konstantin Terashenko in the 87 Mercedes. Said thank you very much, but that could have been a far bigger moment, John.
Well, luckily the polystyrene in the corner markers, but he's also carrying a part of that marker in one side of the radiator, so it needs to be, you can see it there, that yellow piece of, it is polystyrene basically, so it needs to be careful that temperatures which are sensitive don't go too high, because if it goes too high, then you can potentially have an engine damage. There is the remnants of there was a Pirelli corner marker, and it is no longer.
Well, just getting very, very close. So Ricardo Fella, there he is. He's determined to take the Silver Cup victory in this race, and a big sideways moment just in front of him, the Bentley of Pierre-Alexandre Jean. The pressure is starting to tell. Is this going to be the link in the chain that breaks?
Well, Bentley's got good performance off the corners, and you can see how he can stretch the advantage over the Lamborghini, and that's the salvation, one might say, for the Bentley. It just precludes Ricardo Feller, who is, again, we know in this circumstance, capable of lapping quicker, but he can't find a way through. The speed isn't there.
Always interesting when you've got cars with different performance. It might be balanced around the course of an entire lap, but at different points they have an advantage, and certainly the Bentley has plenty of grunt. But they're now starting to fall back. The first four very much clear, which is good news for championship leader Charles Weerts. Doesn't need any pressure from behind, and right now he's got an advantage of 2 seconds back to this battle over 5th place. And in time he's just going to sit behind Lucas Stoltz. He's just 7/10 of a second down on 3rd place. This is almost a dream ride. Not heading the race, not leading the race, but leading the championship with no pressure. They'll bank the points, John.
Clear air again. It all comes down to now we've got 44 minutes to go, so in 9 minutes the pit lane will be open. So that's what, as you say, WRT will be focusing on now. They'll be looking at the gaps ahead and the gaps behind, and determining when will we bring in Charles Weerts, when will we execute our pit stop and driver change.
Interesting graphic showing who gained at the start. Frank Bird gained 4 places, but Nelson Ponsatici, admittedly, he was expecting to gain them. He started down on the 12th row, but he gained 5 places at the start, did what he could. He's still way south of the points, but all you can do is make progress if you're just going to see what comes your way. But talk about making progress. Ben Barnicoat, another lap on the board, 11 laps in, and he's 12.3 seconds to the good over Timo Bogoslawski. Bogoslawski, I thought, was going to crack under the pressure he was getting from Lucas Stoltz, but he hasn't.
He was vulnerable on that opening lap. It looked to me as if he hadn't got the tire pressure, certainly the tire temperatures up to the operational range, and that's why Ben Barnicoat was able to make that pass on the opening lap into Hawthorne. That's why Lucas Stoltz tried to follow through going into Westfield. But once the 88 Mercedes has got that tire temperature and tire pressure where they needed to be, then unfortunately for Lucas Stoltz, he is now stuck behind a car of an identical performance, and Bogoslawski has not made an error that would allow Stoltz to have a thought that he could maybe get through.
And you can really, really understand on the Grand Prix circuit, so dynamic here, but your best chances on the opening lap, but what degree of risk can you take? And Lucas Stoltz so nearly went from 4th up into 2nd. At the corner they're approaching now, we're riding on board with Ricardo Feller In fact, Stoltz had just gone out of view through Westfield. This was the point where he was on the outside, and as you can see, looking back at the Lamborghini, it's such a tricky corner because you find yourself on the outside, the track keeps turning to the right, you're into the compression at Dingle Dale, so he couldn't quite hold on to that second place. Back in third.
You can see how much Feller can close up on the exit of Sheen Curve into Sterling. Now he's as close as he's been to the back of the Bentley, but look, the gap is just stretching. Again, Feller on the brakes, almost touching the back of the Bentley. This is the nearest, I would have said, in the recent laps. Again, as soon as the Bentley gets on the throttle, it just leapfrogs sufficiently hard ahead of the Lamborghini. And Riccardo Feller's sitting there. He can't squeeze the throttle any harder because it won't go any further.
No, it'll be damaging the footwell of the car if he presses any harder. But having been one car length behind coming through Clark Curve, he was 4 or 5 lengths behind by the time they got to Paddock Hill Bend. And then the Lamborghini handles a little more nimbly into the right hand. Down the hill they go, and now down to Graham Hill Bend. You have exactly the same story. Closes onto the tail of the Bentley, and then the Bentley, Pierre-Alexandre Jean presses the pedal, and he opens out a few car lengths. A little bit skitterish there into Surtees. This is the moment that the momentum swings the way of the Lamborghini.
So on to the quickest part of the racetrack, and again you can see the gap literally almost by the metre or the yard is extending in favour of the Bentley. Riccardo Feller sitting there watching the Bentley just steam away what was maybe a couple of car lengths, and the exit of Surtees ends up being about 3 or 4 or 5 car lengths. Again now under brakes into Westfield. Feller takes loads of inside curbing and some of the grass, but to no avail.
It's so frustrating, but again, look at the speeds. Again, it's the Pro-Am runners that are really featuring. Going into Hawthorne's 197 kph for Miguel Ramos, the Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. So astonishing. Julian Pottelos in the Porsche, second.
Down the inside this time.
Well, it was a better run last time. Last time he got the closest he'd been before. This time even closer. But look, the Bentley, it can't get its power down. He was pushed a little bit wide there. Great move by Feller, and he's going to hold it and gain that 5th place, gain the lead in the Silver Cup class. But if the Bentley goes wide, there's a challenge from behind for the Rinaldi Ferrari, getting very close. Looks inside, looks outside, and unfortunately for Patrick Kugler, the door is closed, but unfortunately it wasn't closed in time at Clearways.
No, and that was all because of a good run out of Sterling's for Riccardo Feller. And this time he decided, I'm going to make it, I'm going to be forceful. And there was a little bit of rub as they came down into Clearways, but it allowed the Lamborghini to get the inside going into Clearways, which forced the Bentley wide onto the slightly dirtier part of the corner. And therefore, as you said, couldn't get power down quite as quickly as would ordinarily do. And once Feller had got alongside the Bentley, he was then in control of the run up into Paddock Hill Bend. And now he's ahead. I wonder how quickly he's going to be able to pull away.
And I really wonder how much, well, Patrick Kugler, we've been watching that with great interest. He now fancies a chance. Maybe Pierre-Alexandre Jean will stay cool, stay calm, or is he a little bit rattled by that? He made one tiny mistake, and Riccardo Feller was always going to be on his tail looking to pounce, and he didn't miss the opportunity. He'd be really frustrated if he weren't quite ready to take the chance. He grabbed it with both hands. Now looking back at Patrick Kugler, the Ferrari getting super close for Rinaldi Racing. He's got Benja Itez waiting to take that over, the Chilean racer. A lot of dust kicked up in the background of the shot there. Someone clearly got it slightly wrong up at Sterling's, John. Yeah,
it's running wide just because the ground around Brands Hatch right now is fundamentally fairly dry. Although there were a little rain shower or two yesterday, it was only very briefly. So the gap now between what is now the 6th place Bentley and the 5th place Lamborghini is 1.5 seconds in the space of just over 2 laps.
14 laps on the board. We haven't talked about the gap between race leader Ben Barnicoat's McLaren and Timo Bogoslawski. 14.2 seconds, good for a second per lap since the start of the race. I have never seen such a domination of a Sprint Cup event. So Ben Barnicoat, absolute dream run. And for everyone from Bogoslawski backwards, frustration. But again, we do reckon Stoltz might have the pace to go past, but he's got to find a place to do so.
Riccardo Feller just in picture, and the gap now between Feller and Charles Vett just under 4 seconds, 3.9 seconds. And right now, the lap time that Riccardo Feller is lapping at is fractionally quicker. Not an awful lot, maybe a couple of tenths a second a lap than the Audi currently in 4th place. So again, WRT will be advising Verts that Feller has come through. And we're 3 minutes away, just 2.5 minutes away from the pit window opening up. So will it be an early stop for the 32 Audi, or will it be an early stop? I suspect they're going to keep Riccardo Feller in for as long as possible before he would hand over to Alex Fontana. But maybe WRT will want to put Dries van Thor in slightly earlier than maybe they would have anticipated, when the pit lane may not be as busy as it could get later in that window.
Yeah, I had a quick window to see which pit crews were getting ready. Can't quite see. They're obviously still within their garages right now, but it is a two-horse. Well, it's not a two-horse race. There are two races. Ben Barnicoat now 14.6 seconds the good. And an interesting factor, the sky is starting to become greyer all over again, and we've seen these very, very short localised showers. I think we might get away with it, but we need about another 37 minutes of dry track if we're going to be lucky.
So it's about there's a lights out moment in the commentary booth. Suddenly the commentary booth goes dark because a massive black cloud is drifting slowly over what would be principally the Grand Prix loop of the Brands Hatch circuit. 2.433 miles, 3.916 kilometers, 9 principal corners. There's a lot of curves that really don't count as corners. As the field now drops down, the Pilgrims drop. The speed of the Bentley is its salvation, essentially, that it just has always got enough straight line performance to keep itself ahead, with the exception of a very well executed overtake by Riccardo Fella, who was utterly determined and been determined since the lights went out, and finally made a pass stick on that number 107 Bentley.
Just waiting to see, well, Ben Barnicoat. The lead is absolutely enormous, just turning into Paddock Hill Bend, all on his own as he has been since the start of the race. But the gap on the start-finish straight, still waiting for the car coming through in second place. Timo Boguslawski only now, as the McLaren exits Druids, 15.1 seconds. Only now had he just crossed the start-finish line. That is huge.
I mean, it is rare to see a lead of one of these sprint races, especially here at Brands Hatch, to such a margin. Ordinarily, the field is just compacted for the entirety of the race. It's only the pit stop window, which is going to come in a minute and a half's time. So there is the second place Mercedes, Timo Boguslawski, who's been under pressure. Lucas Stolz in third place has fallen back a little bit. Now that's no bad thing in my view, because it will allow Stolz to reconfigure his own momentum and try and get a run back up on the 88 Mercedes. But of course, with the pit window being open very shortly, 1 minute from now, who will come in first? I suspect also Boguslawski may be an early stopper, get Raffaele Marciolo in behind the wheel of the 88 and send it to the finish.
Just having a little consideration to the Pro-Am racing action. The first two in class, Louis Michiels and Miguel Ramos, are running nose-to-tail through Graham Hill Bend, while the next three, the remaining cars, Kevin C, Valentin Pierberg and Alexander West, are only just going through nose-to-tail out of Druid, so they're into two packs. In fact, Kevin C, just out of going down to Graham Hill Bend, has found a bit of an advantage. Now, the big question, running in fourth place, Charles Weerts, no pressure from behind. He's got a gap of 4 seconds back to Riccardo Fella. It's not closing. They can pick and choose, John. They really can wait long, go early. They can have a look. But of course, Team WRT have 3 cars to service. And Charles Weerts looking cool, calm and collected there, just waiting for the instruction from the team. All you can do is keep pressing on, keep it clean, keep it tidy.
Whoa.
Tidy, don't I say?
Well, a little bit of oversteer there on the entry and a bit on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend for Charles Weerts. So he's, and again, I mean, the back end of the car looking very unstable. Now, I bet you if WRT can see these onboard images, they may think about, well, there they are, they're getting ready. So the 32 car, I suspect, will be the first. I mean, I think the 88 Mercedes likewise might be one of the early stoppers. So 88 and 32 undoubtedly will be thinking about making the opportunity work for them. In fact, WRT already in the pit lane with the man on the orange lollipop indicating where we are in the pit lane, so get your car slowed down. It's the Ferrari.
It's the Ferrari coming in. That's Louis Michiels from the lead in the Pro-Am class, battling with Miguel Ramos, but they've both come into the pits. So it's the Pro-Am runners who are coming in, so Andrea Bertolini will be taking that one over. He'll even be helping put the car in the correct position, and Team WRT would be, in fact, that was Louis Michiels helping, having his moment, but of course that was getting quite close to WRT garage. Don't want it overhanging into their parking zone. Very vital.
And a little bit careless, just overrunning your pit box, because you're coming in at 50 kilometers per hour. It's not difficult to see where your box is. It's a clear pit lane. So those are the little details that the
second, third and fourth all coming in. Boguslawski, Stolz and Weerts, absolutely right choice for Weerts as far as I'm concerned. The pit lane really pretty clear. That Bertolini Ferrari has pulled away from the garage area near the WRT area, so that should be fine for Charles Weerts to be able to hand over without too much pressure again to Dries Van Tor.
So the two Mercedes we've got on picture, the Audi just pulling into its box now, and is that the Lamborghini that's followed in as well? So here we are. Get this change done. You've got enough time to make it. I mean, you've got to do the lap belts up. There's other radio connections if you may have a drinks bottle. They're rolling. The number 6 is rolling, as is the 88. So it's a status quo for those two Mercedes. The Audi's trying to squeeze in between the 88 and the number 6. Don't know. Yes, it managed it. So that was a little cheeky move. That's something that number 6 Mercedes will have been devastated. TalkSport WRT will feel that that was opportunistic, but that's what you have to do. You have to make your passes where you can, whether it's the pit lane or on the racetrack. Dries van Thor didn't quite elbow his way in. It was a safe release. There is our lead car. The gap is now, what? Well, it's 27 seconds because we're now back to the 107 Bentley. But that's Pierre-Alexandre Jean. He has remained out. I suspect Ben Barnicoat will stay out until the last moments of this pit stop 10-minute window. He's no need to come in and then hand over to Oliver Wilkinson with a gap. Well, once all this cycles through, we'll see what the gap in reality is.
Well, that was a very, very strong pit stop, but what it means for championship leaders Dries van Thor and the driver who just handed the car over to him, that's 2 extra points if they can finish in 3rd place. Every point is counting. They're not taking risks. They'll be quite happy to finish in the order they now are in 3rd place overall. But with the race leader Ben Barnicoat continuing to stretch his advantage, the car that was 6th is now in 2nd. That's Pierre-Alexandre Jean in the Bentley. Patrick Kugel has stayed true and tucked in behind him, but only 10 of the 28 runners have yet to come in. But of course that includes the race leader, but he is almost on another planet.
Yes, and he, as I say, there's no reason for Ben Barnicoat or for Jota to bring him in. When Oliver Wilkinson gets the car in his hands, I'm assuming there's still going to be a significantly comfortable lead. It was 15 seconds at that point to Thomas Bergoslawski. It'll probably be much the same to Raffaele Marciello when this all filters through. But we've now we've got 5.5 minutes remaining of this pit stop window opening. So that's another 2 and a bit laps. Finishing this lap and probably another 2 laps before they might need to bring in Ben Barnicoat.
And Barnicoat in the McLaren has just been blessed with clear track by taking the lead at the start, but ever since he's been running in clear air, running how he chooses. His fastest lap of the race, 1:25.1 seconds, is, I think, the next fastest car so far has been the Timo Bogoslawski car, which is 0.7 of a second slower. So this is extraordinary on a circuit where we don't normally deal in tenths of a second. Hundreds tend to be the difference around the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. So dynamic, but the McLaren just streaks clear.
So the Ferrari Patrick Kugel has decided to come in from provisional 3rd place. So the lead is still Ben Barnicoat. Now the gap between 1st and 2nd, still the Bentley in 2nd place. It was 27 seconds. It's now up to 30.2 seconds. So in that last lap, the McLaren pulled out a further 2 and a bit seconds. Okay, the Bentley was not running naturally in 2nd place. It's found itself there as a consequence of the pit stop window being open. So there is Ollie Wilkinson. So they're going to make a pit stop while they've still got the opportunity. We're only basically midway through. But the lead McLaren looks like it's going to make that pit stop. The pit lane is relatively empty. So Oliver Wilkinson walks back into the garage. We're still coming through into the end of the 2nd sector of the circuit.
But only now is, for the first time in the race, Ben Barnicoat has got traffic ahead of him. He's got one of the Sansalot Racing Audis, but I think maybe this time he will sweep into the pit lane. Maybe not, but he just hasn't had to be compromised by one single car in this race as yet.
And that, if they do choose to come in, would be just looking to see how they brought the car in.
No, it's still out on the circuit.
It's in the
pits. It's now now to stand still. They're further up the pit lane.
So the reason they've done that are primarily because they were, as you pointed out, Bruce, they were catching up to the tail of the field, and the momentum that this car have been able to carry all the way through the opening laps would have been then affected. So bring Ben Barnicoat in, do the driver change, let Oliver Wilkinson get back into the car, and hopefully then when he returns to the field as the Bentley itself comes in, they will then end up in a situation not unlike the one that they were in the first part. So all ifs, ands or buts, it depends on the pit stop being efficient and get the car rolling. Come on, Ollie, get the thing rolling. What's the problem? There we are. Time lost. That was a little bit slower than it necessarily needed to be. The car was off the jacks. It should have been rolling a bit quicker.
But look, Raffaele Marciello in 2nd place is only just sweeping through clearways into Clark Curve, and already the McLaren released. Ollie Wilkinson also has pretty clear track ahead of him, but he hit the curb on the inside there, pushed it wide. Just got to keep it cool, calm and collected. Chris Froggatt still hasn't pitted, nor has Norbert Siedler, but everyone else has had their visit.
For Ben Barnicoat, he's done his job. There's Oliver Wilkinson's dad in the background, but he's on an out lap on tyres that will need to come up to temperature. The Mercedes in 2nd place, or what is effectively in 2nd place, has got tyres that are up to temperature. This is the opportunity that Raffaele Marciello needs to capitalise on, and then see if he can eat into the advantage that the McLaren would have.
So waiting for it all to settle down, but McLaren in from the lead, an easy lead, a huge lead, and then out back into the lead. Waiting to see what the gap really will be when Chris Froggatt and Norbert Siedler, the last cars to make their pit stops, come in and then rejoin. But we've got full sunshine now at Brands Hatch. The threat of rain has moved away. You can see the light bouncing off the bonnets of the cars as they go along the Cooper Straight, turn left into Surtees, try and get a clear run to carry, accelerate as soon as possible to take the speed all the way up Pilgrim's.
Ironically, it looks like the 14 Lamborghini is once again behind the Bentley, having had Riccardo Fella do a great job in finding its way around Pierre-Alexandre Jean. So that's just the nature of, well, in fact, 114. That's Arthur Rouget we're looking at, sorry, I beg your pardon, and the 107 Bentley. So Fontana is up in 7th place, and he is directly behind Maro Engel in the number 6 Mercedes.
So the race continues, still 2 drivers not to come in as yet in the Silver Cup class. We're waiting for Chris Froggatt and Norbert Siedler in the third of the Lamborghinis from MFR Racing, the 163 car. Surely they're not going to continue much further than the end of the 23rd lap, but that will put the 38 McLaren back into the lead of the race, the lead that it hasn't given it to anybody else since that great move by Ben Barnicoat around the outside of Timo Bogoslawski into Hawthorns of all corners on the opening lap of the race, and after that it just stretched ever further clear. And here comes the McLaren looking great in its green, white and red livery. Down Pilgrim's Drop it goes, up Hawthorn Hill, no one else to be seen.
Gap between what is effectively the lead car, the McLaren, and second place, which is Raffaele Marcello, on that last lap of 16.9 seconds. So that's a significant advantage that Oliver Wilkinson has managed to maintain. And now he's got in clear air. There's no other cars that are, well, the one car just going into Sterling, but effectively he's got pretty much clear air and he can run at his own natural pace. And those that are ahead of him, I'm not sure if those have yet to complete. I think most of them have now completed. This will be the point where you'll find out the ability, the racing ability of Oliver Wilkinson over Raffaele Marcello.
Okay, what we need to see, in fact, the last 2 cars have come in, so it's clear track again. So Chris Froggatt's come in, and Norbert Siedler, and the McLaren sweeps on its own into Paddock Hill Bend. So this is perfect for Ollie Wilkinson, but what's he got to protect for the next 26 minutes? The advantage over Raffaele Marcello is 7.6 seconds, so that is considerably smaller. It got up to 15, 16 seconds before the pit stop. But let's hear from the driver who poured away from from the second row, took the lead. It's Ben Barnicoat. He's been joined in the pits by Gemma Scott. Let's hear.
Ben, quite rightly, you got out of the car there, delighted with your stint. An incredible drive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was very frustrated not to be starting where we should have been on the front row, on the pole position, but, you know, it's what it is. I just dealt with it. And yeah, had an amazing first lap, got into the lead, and then just got my head down from there. So built up as big as I gap as I could. Now this is the most hard part, watching Ollie try and bring it home.
Absolutely. Maybe we should fire you up a bit more often, eh?
Yeah, it seems to have worked, you know. And yeah, what can I say? Just need to pull my finger out a bit more, I think. But yeah, it was great. And yeah, huge thanks to the Jota guys and everyone at McLaren. The car was on fire, as just shown there. So yeah, it's great to be able to do that on home soil.
We've certainly seen the McLaren and the team go from strength to strength.
Yeah, all year long, you know, we've just been getting faster and faster. Spa was an amazing showing for us. Didn't quite have the luck to get the result, so hopefully that luck's going to be with us today and try and bring it home where we are currently. But, you know, Ollie's got an extremely fast Italian guy behind him, so it's not going to be easy.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that's Ben Barnicoat, and that gap is coming down and down. It was 7 and a bit seconds. It's now only 6.5. So Raffaele Marcello really on a charge. You'd expect nothing less from him. But for Ollie Wilkinson, he's got to keep it cool, calm, collected, get himself sorted. But instead of being 2 corners ahead, now there's only 1 corner between them. It's just Surtees between the chasing number 88 Mercedes and Raffaele Marcello, who's got no one behind him. He's 4 seconds clear. Not nobody, it's Dries Van Tor, but he's 4 seconds back. So certainly the concentration for Marcello is going after the win they need. They're running second in the championship. They have to scoop maximum points.
Yes, the mercurial Raffaele Marcello is hunting down the lead McLaren. Oliver Wilkinson needs just to keep his focus, not let anything that's going on in his mirror or he's getting from the pit wall deflect him too much. He knows that the pace Raffaele's got is at this point quicker than he's able to extract from the McLaren, but the difference is the McLaren has got the lead, and it's always easier to defend a lead than it is to run down. Oh, somebody's gone off there in the exit of Sheen Curve.
So this is a replay coming up, looking at the Team Allied Racing Porsche running well. The track turns right, and the driver did not at that particular point. So a rough moment there for the Team Allied Racing Porsche. It does rejoin eventually.
It looked a bit like rallycross up at Sheen Curve. I think either he got a momentary feel or oversteer moment. That's what allowed him to force him to go wide on the entry in, as we see the race leader. Once again, the gap down to 5.3 seconds. As we look at Van Thor and Mad Panda, how they found their way up there. Rick Brookers.
Right, now the critical thing for me is this gap comes down as Raffaele Marcello goes through Graham Hill Bend. He's less than 5 seconds now behind the race leading McLaren. There are 2 cars up ahead of Ollie Wilkinson. They're bringing up the rear of the field. Dominic Baumann and Adam Christodoulou in their 2 Mercedes, and they could have a role to play in this within the next 2 or 3 laps, I'd suggest.
Richie Tomita in the 31 Audi, not the 32, with Rick Brookers all over the back of him in the Mad Panda. So they're battling away over 6th place. Gap on the last lap between Marcello and Wilkinson, 5.3 seconds. Last lap, Marcello was 0.6 of a second quicker on that lap.
Right, looking at that battle between Tomita and Brookers, they're both cars that have worked their way up the order. Frankfurt gained 4 places and start and in the pit stop rear cheer. Tomita went from 8th up to 6th. The Rick Broikers, they lost a bit of ground at the start of the race, starting from row 5, but certainly up into 7th place. Good run for Mad Panda. But the big question is what is going to... Oh, I've just seen on the screen, number 159 Aston Martin, now in the hands of Nicolas Chiaillard, done for speeding in the pit lane. In fact, they're in the pit lane again, serving a drive-through penalty. That's blown their chances. It's one of the Garage 59 cars. And I noticed also the sister car, the 188, Aston Martin, under investigation for some pit stop misdemeanor.
So Enrique Chavez in the 77 Barwell Motorsport, leading the Pro-Am category in 23rd position. So that battle with the Porsche Klaus Bachler is a battle for overall position, but it's more important for Chavez to win that Pro-Am category. There he is.
Well, great to see that. Saw team boss Smart Lemmer this morning found a trophy from a very long time ago that belonged to BPR, so he brought that back to the circuit, so he'll gain some. He's hoping for some extra championship points for returning that to the Stefan Rattel organisation. I'm not sure that will be that easy, but he'll actually forego those points if he can take victory with Enrique Chavez in the Pro-Am class. And Chavez, the Portuguese racer, shares with Nico Ramos, doing a very, very good job indeed and stretching his advantage all the time. So you've got Andrew Bertolini, no less, giving chase, and they should look, well, they're so far back that there is no battle at all.
I mean, it's the full length of the pit straight before the Ferrari comes into view. So that battle for the Pro-Am is really it's perfunctory. Chavez has got a sufficiently big advantage that Bertolini, well, what we've got 20 minutes of this race remaining, would need to be doing some serious lappery to get on terms with the Lamborghini, and let alone try and find a way around. Gap between first and second is now down to 3.5 seconds. So Marcello once again on the lap, taking over half a second a lap out of the advantage of the McLaren driver.
Well, Ben Barnicoat did his bit, and now it's for Ollie Wilkinson to gird his loins to see if he can hang on to the lead of the race, because certainly that red-nosed Mercedes is going to be on his tail very soon indeed. One would think within about 4 or 5 laps. But we've got 20 minutes remaining in this 1-hour race, the opening race of 2 here at Brands Hatch in the Sprint Cup. And what else is going to change? One feels that Ollie Wilkinson is going to have to produce the drive of his life if he's going to maintain the lead in the race for Jota with the one McLaren in this race. But right now they're on home ground and they're leading.
Stefan McCalmy in the Bentley all over the rear of Giorgio Roda, and the Ferrari into clearways. So the Bentley, we know, has got good straight line performance. He needs every bit of it to find a way past the Ferrari, and marginally closing, but not anywhere near sufficient to get up alongside and take away the entry into Paddock Bend. So the drop down, the compression, then the run up the hill into Druids. Used to be a favourite overtaking spot in the good old days, but of course these days everything is so easily defended. There is our race leader. The gap was 3.6 seconds, Bruce, but I think it's going to fall even more. And now the problem will arise with coming up to lap traffic.
Yeah, up ahead he's got the next car. First car he's going to reach. So he rejoined the race or joined the race is Dominic Baumann in the SPS Automotive Mercedes, but the gap, it's down to 3 seconds, pretty much flat there in the background. The 88 Mercedes getting closer. Look, half a second gain, 1.2 seconds gain, 1.2 seconds. Those last 3 laps have been very, very positive for the Mercedes as it gives chase, but it's how Ollie Wilkinson can deal with the traffic. It could find him an advantage, or he could just find the 88 Mercedes right on his tail. He's got to pick and choose his moments, and the blue flags must be waved ahead of him.
Well, that's the key. If the flags are being waved and the driver's responding to that blue wave flag, getting through should be straightforward, but of course it depends on the part of the racetrack where that opportunity arises. There are bits of the circuit, it'll be a lot easier to get through. You will not lose any of your momentum, but if you have to stack up behind 2 or 3 cars, as the likely outcome is going to be for Ollie Wilkinson as he comes down now through Westfield, dropping down at Dingledale up the hill. So this group of 3 cars, with the 4th of the 3 is the race leader, he'll be thinking, where am I going to go? Look at the pace, look at the pace of Marcello. Raffaele Marcello runs the curb and the exit. Nothing wrong with doing that. Kicks a bit of dust onto the circuit. Car that's following will not thank him very much for it. And that ought to be Dries van Thor, who's 4.9 seconds behind.
Dries does dive into clearways as the leader, Ollie Wilkinson, goes over the start-finish line. I thought he might be able to make a move up towards paddock, not got close enough, and the car in front is certainly pressing on Dominic Baumann in the Pro-Am class. Will the flags be waved up into Druids? Not close enough to make a move, but what is getting shorter is the gap. It's down to 2 seconds, almost precisely. Ollie Wilkinson in the race lead, the Toyota McLaren ahead of Raffaele Marcello, who is absolutely coming in and coming fast.
So the McLaren is running down Baumann in the Mercedes, but not sufficiently. Whereas on the other hand, Marcello is able to run at his own pace, and that's a quicker pace than that the McLaren is running at. So he will then end up joining onto the tail of this group of cars. So he will, unless he can make execute a quick and clean overtake of the McLaren, he'll end up running. So Baumann pulls over, and that was a good place on the circuit to allow the McLaren to go through, because now they're going to come into one of the tighter sections. So you can see, will Baumann be as generous to Raffaele Marcello as he was to the McLaren, too far back at this point? So that's given a bit of breathing space to Oliver Wilkinson, and he will be welcoming that every opportunity it gets.
Yeah, he'll have a slight smile on his face. I'm sure Dominic Baumann will be just as professional, keeping out of the way. He stays in the middle of the track, just where he needs to be for the moment. So Marcello is going to try and get a bit of a toe. And then look, Baumann, well done, keeping out of the way. He's not in the same battle, but he did lose a couple of seconds in letting those 2 leaders come through. The gap, well, we'll see what it is. I think it might have been slight advantage to race leader Ollie Wilkinson. We've got 16 and a bit minutes remaining, so almost biting their nails down at Jota. Can they hang on? If there are interruptions, they can go either way. That one went slightly the way of the race leader, but the gap is down to 1.2 seconds.
Yes, and I mean, really, it's academic. It's, what, 4 car lengths, 5 car lengths now. Momentum is still favouring the 88 Mercedes-Benz. Oliver Wilkins is looking forward. Who else have I got to then deal with? Am I going to get assistance or not?
Well, the next car he's got in front of him is Nikolai Kjærgaard. This is the 159 Garage 59 Aston Martin that had to serve a drive-through penalty. Would be higher up the order, and they will be caught soon. Fantastic battle from 6th place backwards. Ria Chiritomito, Rick Boykers, Fred Verviche, Oscar Tuncho, Ulysses Depot and Arthur Rougier. Very seldom a gap of more than a second between any of those, so they'll start to run nose to tail.
So what is Wilkinson able to do? The pace he's got is clearly quicker than those cars that are ahead of him, but it's the same old story. The cooperation from Dominic Baumann is what you would hope and expect. Whether he'll get the same treatment from the Aston directly ahead or not is another matter.
So very nearly 3/4 of this race completed. It's still being led by the car that led at the end of the opening lap. We look at it now, it's the tail end of the McLaren, but we're seeing it through the windscreen of Raffaele Marcello's chasing ACA ASP Mercedes, getting closer and closer and closer. It's almost as though respite might be earned if they can catch the Aston Martin, and Ben Barnicoat as the race leader can find an advantage. Are we under a second between first and second? Waiting for the 0.6 of a second. That's 15 minutes ago, only 0.6 of a second. Is this an ask too much for Oliver Wilkinson? He's gaining experience, but he's got to make not one single slip up.
Well, he's also got to put himself in a position where he doesn't open the door to the 88 Mercedes, because he's been compromised by the Aston directly ahead. Ben Barnicoat looking down, and you can see, oh, look at the slide from Marcello as he came out of Graham Hill Bend. He was on the gas really early. The back end of the Mercedes swung out on a good old traditional 4-wheel slide or drift. That doesn't do your rear tyres a whole load of good, but doesn't half look good on TV.
Absolutely, I was just about to say, but who likes it the most? The TV director. So Raffaele Marciello trying to get a toe, not quite close enough, up Hawthorne Hill into Hawthorne's. What is up ahead? The McLaren, obviously the race leader. What's ahead of that is the tail end of the 159 Aston Martin. He's got Johnny Adam in the sister car from Garage 59 just up ahead of him, but I'm sure both of them will be professional enough when the flags are waved in front of their Aston Martins to get out of the way. It looks so it's even halved. I'd say it's about 0.3 of a second as they sweep left through Sterling's slightly cautious exit there from Ollie Wilkinson, trying not to make a mistake, but certainly for Raffaele Marciello, he's using all of the brio and more. He's happy to hang the tail out, as you pointed, John, and he's got the whiff in his nose, the scent of victory potentially.
Well, actually, the pace that the McLaren is running at now is almost a virtual identical time to that of the two Aston Martins running directly ahead, albeit they're almost a lap down. And now you've got Raffaele Marciello almost in a position where he will be trying to force an error out of Oliver Wilkinson to see if he can get the 88 Mercedes into the lead. And we've got, 13 minutes of the race remaining. Very tentative the way the McLaren entered Graham Hill Bend and exited. Not confidence, and that's Marciello's chance. He could see the opportunity, wasn't quite far enough forward, but Oliver Wilkinson certainly isn't showing the level of confidence that we saw from Ben Barnicoat, and that's where that time has just evaporated away and allowed the 88 Mercedes to close onto the McLaren.
12.5 minutes remaining. Worth pointing out the best result that Ben Barnicoat and Oliver Wilkinson have achieved this year was 4th place. That was in the second of the two races, the opening round at Magny-Cours. They picked up an 8th. They didn't do the round at Zandvoort, and they picked up an 8th place at Misano last time out. However, it's all about getting on the podium. If they can win, it's an absolute bonus. If they can get on the podium, it's still better than they've achieved before. So for Jota, but right now, of course they want victory, but again, slightly tentative. But the thing is, now we've got to the situation, the 88 Mercedes is close, and he's shown, Raffaele Marciello has shown, if you give me half a chance, I'll at least stick my nose up and have a look. But he's got to do a move that sticks, because if they end up colliding, and there's Timo Bogoslawski watching what his teammate is doing, they can't take too many risks. They're the championship chasers. They want as many points they can get. They want the points for victory, but they don't want to end up in a gravel trap.
He's going to have a thought about it up the hill into Druids. He's not sufficiently close behind, but he's going to stick the nose up the inside just to add to the further distraction of the McLaren driver. It was down the hill and into Graham Hill Bend that Marciello last time around looked like he was offering a serious threat, and again trying to put himself into that position. The McLaren and Mercedes run wide, but can Marciello get up along, dive it down the inside, create the space? Wow, that was close. There was almost nose to tail contact between the two lead cars.
But in a way, when that happens, the McLaren driver Wilkinson is actually slightly relieved. As long as he gets it covered off, it means the Mercedes driver has committed a little bit too much. Ben Barnicoat, occasionally he can look at the timing screen, but it's another lap in which the car stays in the lead.
And the third driver in the team, Rob Bell, was standing behind Barnicoat, and all three were shuffling around going, wow, how close did that get?
It's all about experience. Raffaele Marciello has more experience, but Wilkinson really putting up a stout defence of the lead. Through Sheen Curve they go. Slightly tighter line being used there by Raffaele Marciello into Sterling's. It's a cautious defensive drive, but that's what's required at the moment from Oliver Wilkinson. Look, what's the clock counted down to? 10 minutes 40 seconds. He's got to hang on. The lead came down very quickly from 5 laps or so. Mercedes onto his tail, and a better exit, one would suggest, for the Mercedes, getting a bit more punch out of Clark Curve.
Yes, and Wilkinson just got to stay to the right, the middle of the racetrack, not offer an opportunity to Marciello. And again, it just looks to me as if the McLaren is slightly more nervy. It's certainly coming down the hill now. Marciello not trying to pass, but trying to get a different exit, trying to figure out what can I do to put the McLaren under more pressure. It's here that the McLaren looks to be the least comfortable of any corner on a lap. This time, not the case. It was a little bit better, and again Marciello charges up to the back of the McLaren on the way into Surtees, but doesn't offer up the opportunity he did the one lap earlier.
We haven't really talked for quite a while about the championship leader, Dries van Toren, the number 32 Audi. He's starting to close on this pair because they are certainly compromising. All those little attacks into Surtees by Marciello, both of them slightly slowed by that. And Dries van Toren is coming, but the good thing for Dries in the championship lead is he's almost 2 seconds clear of Maro Engel. Got out of the pits, squeezed out. We saw him gain that position as they left the pits, but he's running in clear air on his own. He can get up onto the tail of this potentially in the final few laps, but he will be able to collect. If he finishes in third, he'll pick up the points that go with that, which will be very, very handy indeed for him. 9.5 points.
Watch Marciello this time out of Sterling's. Looks like he's as close as he's been at any point, but being defended by Wilkinson now. The better entry into the corner will be for the Mercedes. runs wide on the exit. Wilkinson has to go wide because he's a tight line. So this is the closest in reality, other than the one occasion into Surtees. So pressure is building from Marcello on Wilkinson now. Again on the exit. Will he make a move up the inside? It'll be a very late dive if he does. He decides not to because Wilkinson defends, doesn't leave the opportunity.
Another lap gone in which a move hasn't happened. At Druids, they cross the start-finish line 0.186 of a second behind. You can see Dries Van Tor now coming into shot in the background, and track limits will be observed at all times, allegedly, but Fraile Marcello forced to try and take different lines in each instant. Hasn't had a little look up the inside for the last couple of laps at Surtees, but he's almost more interested in getting better exit from the corner and the run up towards Hawthorns. Into Pilgrim's Drop they go, up Hawthorn Hill. Another lap in which that lead has been protected. Ollie Wilkinson growing in stature with every single lap.
The team principal and team members all glued to the screen, just wishing their driver and just keep doing what you're doing, because they know as close as Marcello can get, there isn't enough left in the tank in the Mercedes. It will only come either through back markers and traffic or an error on the part of the McLaren driver. Again, how close is Marcello coming off Sterling's? Again, the run down into clearways. Good defence from Wilkinson. Again, slightly compromises his corner. And now watch Marcello try to swoop back under the McLaren. But again, just enough in the tank for the McLaren to maintain that advantage all the way up into Paddock Hill. Now again, Marcello close onto the back. Thinks about, will he make a move up the inside? Will he make a move up the outside? Didn't help himself by running wide on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend.
And the cavalry is coming to the assistance of Jota Sport, because look, the third place car, Dries Van Tor, is getting closer and closer. He's down to 1.5 seconds off the tail of the 88 Mercedes. Marcello, another chance, running very, very wide at Graham Hill Bend. Every little slip up lets the championship leader get on the tail, and that could buy a tiny bit of respite for the race leader, Ollie Wilkinson. And again, different lines through Surtees, John.
There's no way you can go around the outside at Surtees, but you can sort of get yourself lined up to get a good run off the corner, and that's what Marcello was trying to do. But again, straight line speed of the McLaren just about enough to keep the Mercedes at bay. And again, a different line through the corner, having now to think hard and what am I going to do? I'm trying to run my natural pace, and I'm still being run down by Marcello. And I still think the McLaren is a slightly more tricky car, particularly off Graham Hill corner. That's the one that seems to be its. Now they've caught up to these two Aston Martins and the Ferrari. Marcello's, this is what he was waiting for.
Well, absolutely so. We thought, how quickly would they pass the Aston Martins? They'd only been able to do so. They were backed up by Giorgio Roda, and this has suddenly provided a possibility for Raffaele Marcello. He looks, he's outside, he's in front of McLaren, but he's edged himself wide, and Dries Van Tor is about to pounce on him, trying to take the second place. He's got the better run out of Clark Curve, so a nightmare. Unfortunately, a move was attempted but not pulled off, but Marcello isn't going to back out. He holds on to second place. This is fantastic, John.
Yeah, I mean, he went a long way around the outside, but of course that's the dirtier part of the corner, and you could see how much of the momentum he lost in doing so. And Van Thor actually just about got alongside, but eventually the Mercedes was able to consolidate into Paddock Hill Bend, and they've still got the problem with these other cars, the Aston Martin and the Ferrari. So, what, 5 minutes remaining, and heart in mouth time for all three lead cars, let alone those that are lap down. So the battle going on, the Aston and the Ferrari, they're oblivious to what's going on behind.
Yeah, but what's actually happened right there, I'm sure Johnny Adam is professional enough to keep out of the way. There was a slight loss of momentum out of Surtees by the McLaren in the lead of this race. Ollie Wilkinson still there. He had a tiny bit of respite, but look, they're side by side, and the race leader needs to get through. He's being compromised, nearly hits the tail of Giorgio Roda's Ferrari, and Marcello is alongside, and Dries Van Tor's ready to pounce.
He's got past. No, he hasn't.
No, McLaren still just about hanging on. Breathe, and there's contact, and the McLaren is taken off, unfortunately clashing into Dingledale. Oh, that is disaster for Jota, and that means probably a red flag, one would presume, and that means somehow Marcello stays on the track, and Dries Van Tor is now up into second.
Full course yellow in 20 seconds. Full course yellow in 20 seconds.
Yeah, that was 3 into 2, does not go, and just the contact was inevitable.
Full course yellow in 10 seconds.
And of course, part of the problem was that Giorgio Roda
5
and others.
3, 2, 1. Full course yellow now.
Could have done better, and that's where you rely on the back markers, and that was not handled well by those back markers, in my opinion.
It was unfortunate. The rest really, really got close. We love close racing. He got too close. 3 does not work side by side into Dingledale, and for Jota, you really have to feel for them there. In fact, the first 3 were compromised enormously down there, and unjust returns for Ollie Wilkinson, who drove a supreme race under enormous pressure. He's out of the car, but there's lots of damage to the barriers down there.
And the car, of course, has gone over the barriers
yeah.
into the effectively what is a copse.
So good to see him out of the car, but real frustration for all parties concerned there, but most notably for Jota, because Ollie Wilkinson drove really well under the most extreme pressure, and Raffaele Marcello kept on looking for places to go past, and then side-by-side contact, and with the nose of the McLaren just in front, it pivoted around the nose of the Mercedes, and the teams will all be talking to their drivers under this full course yellow period.
And the stewards will be looking at that incident, because that's a major incident here at Brands Hatch. The car actually getting over the barriers and into... there is Oliver Wilkinson. He appears to be fine, but he'll go to the medical centre for that mandatory check, and the race will finish under a full course yellow. There's only 3.5 minutes remaining, so nothing is going to happen. In fact, I wonder, will it even be red flagged, or will we continue just looking down to see if there are any indications?
Well, there's an ambulance working its way around through Surtees out to the back part of the circuit where Oliver Wilkinson has had that accident. First three cars side by side, the rescue vehicles already in position, moving to the scene.
I don't. There's the scene of the incident. You look at the barriers. I mean, there is major damage to the barrier alone, and of course the car is further. You can see the car in that copse. So that was a massive. I mean, that's going to be a considerable length of time for the circuit to be repaired. I don't know what damage is done to the McLaren. I suspect it's unlikely we'll see the car out for race 2 this afternoon. But that was a major impact, not just only to the lead car, but to the barriers around the Brands Hatch circuit. And well, it'll be an interesting meeting going on with the race director and the stewards, and analysing and if there is any blame to be allayed where it should be.
Well, what we saw, of course, was the compression of the field, the bunch of cars in front of them running on the run between Hawthorns and Westfield. By the time they went out of Westfield, they started past the back markers, and that's when we had the cars 3 abreast, and that is where the contact occurred. And unfortunately for the McLaren, it speared to the left and at an angle you don't normally get cars going off at Dingledale. It was as they went into the bottom of Dingledale, into the compression, that's where the contact was made. So the cars pulling slowly down the start-finish straight during this full course yellow, under 2 minutes remaining in the race, but unfortunately for Jota, their car very much out of the race, and real frustration. And for the WRT crew and ACA ASP, still looking at the screens, still waiting, but as it is, their car, the 88 Mercedes, Raffaele Marcello, second in the championship, is being followed around at a bated pace, the full course yellow pace, by Dries van Tor, the championship leader. So for Dries van Tor, John and Charles Weerts, they wanted to collect points. They will collect a very good haul of points if they hold on to this second place, and that's where they end up, and they don't get promoted to victory. No point getting ahead. They just needed to bank the points, and for the 88 crew, they needed to get as many as they could without the 32 scoring.
Well, we have to wait and see the outcome of this race, because there could be a change. Even though the Mercedes right now will take the checkered flag, there may be an investigation and to see whether there is any liability on the part of Raffaele Marcello for what ended up as being a very severe accident to the lead, the 38 Jota McLaren. It may be determined that, I don't know, wait and see.
Well, we will have to wait and see, and what a shame. It really was bubbling nicely and coming to a dramatic conclusion, but we didn't want it to be this dramatic. But the best news in all of this is that Ollie Wilkinson is walking clearly fine out of the car, and I did sort of sense he might have been gesticulating at the others in that lead group when they came past behind under full course yellow at abated speed. But look, we're into the final 30 seconds of this race, and we are clearly going to end under full course yellow conditions, which will mean potential victory for the 88 Mercedes, Raffaele Marcello. 32 in second place for Dries van Tor, and Mauro Engel in third place. That is the podium as it stands. The leading car, we're released for the... We've gone green for the final lap. No, we haven't. They're just accelerating over the start-finish line. I just heard an increase in noise. But the leading car in Pro-Am, just to do the housework, is Enrique Chavez, the 77 Barwell Motorsport Lamborghini. And they have a suitable lead of 8 and a bit seconds over Andrea Bertolini. So at least that looks like a clear result.
So high drama in the closing minutes at Brands Hatch. And Dries van Tor, who's sitting back, managed to avoid all that was taking place, witnessed it all, and certainly if anybody needs to get a first-hand report from a good witness, he's your man.
Well, over the laps, as Ollie Wilkinson was resisting the charge from Marcello, I could just see in the background Dries van Tor coming closer and closer, and for van Tor, the difference between third and fourth in points isn't enough to make a difference, but they did gain that with that clever pit stop, just getting out ahead of the TalkSport WRT. Mercedes, and then just able to get the pressure on Marcello. He wanted to exert the pressure, waved yellow flag on the start-finish line. We've reached the end of an hour, and the checkered flag comes out. So the order as they cross the line is 88 from 32. That's Raffaele Marcello from Dries van Thor. Third place to Mauro Engel in the number 6 Top Sport Mercedes. Fourth place will go to Alex Fontana, the 14 Lamborghini. That's the leading car in the Silver Cup class. Fifth place to Riachiro Tomita, sharing with Frank Bird. That's a good result for Frank on home ground. Sixth to Rick Breukers, the Mad Panda Motorsport Mercedes. And then seventh place to Fred Vervisch, the 26 Audi from Santalot Racing. Eighth place to number 7 Mercedes of Oscar Tunjo. Ninth place to Ulysses de Pauw. That Bentley ran as high as fifth, but unfortunately slipped back to ninth. And Arthur Rougier in this weekend to stand in for the injured Jack Aitken, taking 10th place in number 114 Lamborghini. The winning car in the Pro-Am class will be in 21st position overall, will be Enrique Chavez. So a good run for Barwell on home ground. Ahead of the 52 Mercedes from AF Corsa and the 188 Aston Martin that Johnny Adam shares with Alexander West. And there is the Pro-Am winner coming through, the all-Portuguese crew. So job done in race 1. Looking forward to see what they can achieve in the second race. And in fact, right at the end, the Bertolini car got a whole lot closer. So there was drama all race, but a lot of drama 3 laps ago when Ollie Wilkinson went off into and over the barriers. He only had 37 laps on the board, and at the end the winners had 40 laps on the board. But I'm sure we're going to have plenty to talk about through the rest of today. One more race to come, of course, but what this has meant is whether second, as he's finished on the track, or wherever, for Dries van Thor and Charles Weerts, this is really, really good news. They came here to consolidate their championship lead, and they've more than done that, quite frankly, by just making sure they got on the podium. That's what they were looking for, and this is what they've achieved.
It'll be interesting to hear any interviews with the race winner, his opinion or version of the events that occurred, 3 laps ago. What that is somewhat irrelevant because it will undoubtedly be investigated. Yes,
the message is on the screen.
38 and 88 under investigation, rightly too, because it was a major incident, and fortunately Oliver Wilkinson is uninjured. The car, goodness knows what state it's in.
So after 40 laps and 1 hour of racing with a very, very dramatic conclusion, victory goes to the AKA ASP Mercedes, the AMG GT3, driven by Timo Bogoslawski, who started, and Raffaele Marcello, who brought it to the finish. Second place is the Team WRT Championship leading Audi of Charles Weerts, who started, and Dries van Thor. At the end, 0.6 of a second down, but of course that was under full course yellow. Lucas Stoltz and Mauro Engel did little wrong. They come home in third place. Top Sport WRT Mercedes. Fourth place, leading the Silver Club challengers, Ricardo Feller and Alex Fontana. Fifth place, Frank Bird and Riachiro Tomita in the second of the WRT Audis. And Ezekiel Perez-Companc and Rick Breukers, good charge from them to get up to 6th place. Third of the Audis across the finish line, Aurélien Panis and Fred Vervisch, Santalot Racing, Yusuf Pohaka and Oscar Tunjo in the second of the Top Sport Mercedes. Running through. So the calm after the storm at Brands Hatch, the second 1 hour Sprint Cup race will be following, but one feels that the hottest action may be up around the steward's box, because the investigation, the incident between car 38 and 88, I'm sure, is already commencing. So let's take a look at the last of the cars as they come into the pits, and then we'll have another check of the result. So we feel these are probably provisional results. We think maybe some investigations. But Timo Bogoslawski and Raffaele Marcello, AKA ASP number 88 Mercedes, victory, full course yellow conclusion after the incident on lap 38. And Charles Weerts and Dries van Thor, the championship leaders, crossing the line just 0.6 of a second behind. Lucas Stoltz and Mauro Engel, the Top Sport WRT Mercedes, in third place overall. Then Ricardo Feller and Alex Fontana, good fourth place, but also taking the maximum haul in the Silver Cup. Frank Bird and Riachiro Tomita coming home in fifth in the second WRT Audi. Now you go to the second page of results, and Barwell Motorsport, 21st position overall, but victory in the Pro-Am class for Miguel Ramos and fellow Portuguese racer Enrique Chavez, chased to the finish by Louis Michiels and Andrea Bertolini, and Alexander West and British driver Johnny Adam, third in the Pro-Am class, on home ground for the Garage 159 Aston Martin crew. So John, there was action, and then there was drama.
Yes, and that was unfortunate because it all focused and revolved around the back markers, and who can get through and who is going to force the issue. And it all got a bit messy going into Westfield, but then the real issue started on the run down from Westfield into Dingledell and the climb up into Sheen Curve, and that's where the contact between the 38 and the 88 occurred.
Right, well, here are the championship positions, and they're provisional, so came here with a very sizable lead. That's Dries van Tor and Charles Weerts. It has been trimmed because they finished behind the challengers, Raffaele Marcello and Timo Bogoslawski, but with this afternoon's race and 2 races to come in the final round of the championship, a 23-point advantage is very, very handy indeed. 16.5 points for a win, so you can imagine 23-point advantage spread across 3 races. Just keep finishing on the podium, which Dries van Tor and Charles Weerts seem to be able to do at will, and the title should be theirs. And of course we have the Silver Cup and the Pro-Am classes to consider as well. And let's take a look at the Silver Cup standings, and it's Alex Fontana and Ricardo Fella stretching their advantage. Well, Fontana's got more points than Fella because of course they were split in different cars earlier in the season, and so Fontana with a 28-point advantage, the title nearly in the bag, and we seem to have the ability to extend it here at Brands Hatch. Frank Bird, British driver, in 3rd place, sharing with Riachiro Tomita, so they've gathered some useful points today to move ahead of Pierre-Alexandre Jean and Ulysses Depot. So a bit of clearing up is required at Brands Hatch. And let's take a look at the 3rd class. This is the Pro-Am class, and Miguel Ramos and Enrique Chavez took victory today, and that's given them an advantage. It was very, very tight in the class at the start of play, but they've really enjoyed today. Valentin Pierberg and Dominic Baumann in 2nd place, and just ahead of Alexander West and Johnny Adam. But all to play for again in the 2nd race this afternoon. And here come, walking down the pit lane, smiling and laughing, the championship leader Dries van Tor on the left, Raffaele Marcello in the middle. They've parked their cars, and Mauro Engel, second of the Mercedes drivers, walking down and chatting, looking as though there isn't a care in the world, John.
Well, I think they may be discussing something that will maybe be the focal point of conversation in a short time, and the conclusion of the stewards' meeting and the investigation into that incident has been announced. It may be that no penalties apply, or there may be a penalty to the 88 in particular, because it was the right front of the Mercedes, to me, that contacted the left rear of the McLaren, and that then turned the McLaren. And of course, once it was turned, and of course at Brands Hatch, the margins between the edge of the racetrack and the barriers is very, very minimal. And the pace that the cars were doing, over 100 miles an hour, that part of the circuit, and backing into the barrier unfortunately didn't keep the car within the confines of the circuit. It went outside the circuit, which is never satisfactory.
So I'm sure this incident, the collision that changed the lead of the race, will be much, much discussed. But let's take a look at the replay of the incident. You've got Giorgio Roda just in front of the first 3 cars. The Mercedes is on the outside, the McLaren's on the inside, and Dries van Tor in the Audi is gaining behind them. John, take it away.
Well, we don't actually see what happened. That's shocking to see a car hit a barrier and then deflect. Here we go. Now here you can see the Ferrari it was squeezed on the left-hand side. McLaren defending, Mercedes trying to find a way through. Now on board with Roda, he's got cars on the other side. There's the McLaren going around. Now we didn't see the car, the Ferrari. He looked for the situation. He almost himself had his own major accident.
Well, horrible to be turning around, but now looking from behind, this is jinking around the outside of the Ferrari, comes across past the Ferrari, clips the McLaren. They were so close together, very little room to negotiate. Now the last of the shots, this is looking from Dries van Tor's point of view. This might be the one that tells the story.
Well, it's very difficult because both cars are involved, so one might say both cars were... The trouble was that the McLaren was on the the right-hand side of the racetrack, beginning to try and move into the middle, and the Mercedes was on the left-hand side of the racetrack trying to get around the Ferrari. And ultimately it might be declared a racing incident, albeit a very severe one.
Yeah, certainly Raffaele Marcello was the driver who had to change his line. He certainly didn't fancy A, losing momentum, or B, hitting the back of Giorgio Roda's Sky Tempesta Racing Ferrari, but... Dries van Tor had the clearest view, and in fact probably the person who had the clearest view would be Mauro Engel, who was running just a second or so behind that grouping in 4th place, but it happened very quickly. So it looks as we're going to go down and have a quick interview in the pit lane, just waiting for them to get some masks on. Clearly the story of 2020 and 2021. So the spectators on South Bank had plenty to enjoy, but let's go down and hear from our championship leaders, Dries van Tor, who finished the race, and Charles Weerts, who kicked it off. They're down with Gemma.
Charles, Dries, a 2nd place for you is exactly where you wanted to be from the start of the race. I imagine obviously a victory would have been better, but difficult circumstances under the closing stages of that race. Dries, your take on what happened?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I hope he's okay. First of all,
He's fine.
It was a big crash. Yeah, I mean, it was tricky. I mean, there was a lot of traffic coming at one stage, and I mean, I think Marcello was behind the Ferrari, and then the Ferrari wanted to let him by, but then the McLaren was already there, and there was no space to go back, and it was a bit of hoggy-boggy, touching each other. I think the stewards need to look carefully in it, because it was a big crash, and I think for sure there was something to see not to say who or what, but what exactly went wrong and who's more in blame. But first of all, I think it's really the point to look in, because it was a big shunt, and I really hope he's okay.
But just from your point of view as well, Charles, for you guys, you know, the pace seemed to have really turned around from yesterday in qualifying. You seem to be really finding your way here.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Mercedes are pretty strong, as we also had our trucks. Here seems to be a bit of a their advantage, but yeah, we are trying to make the best out of this situation. And I think, if we can just score good points like we did in the first race, even in the second race, this would be great for the championship. And we still have one other weekend in Valencia, so we take it easy.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Well done, boys.
So good to hear from the crew that finished second, the championship leaders. They came here to consolidate, and they're doing that very much so, and keeping the others right on their toes. So slight pause for the fans, waiting for the podium ceremony to commence. But first, let's go down to the race winners, Timo Bogoslawski and Raffaele Marcello, who are down with Gemma and will tell all about how their race went.
Timo, Raffaele, a victory, albeit one that slightly difficult circumstances with the way the race finished. Timo, from your start of the race there, you know, it was a very, very difficult race to keep pace, to get through traffic as well.
Yeah, I was also a bit nervous, so honestly, and also pressure was not there, so I have a lot of oversteer and understeer, so but McLaren completely crazy on the straight, so what power he have, it's not. I was able to do it anything, so he was making a better exit and overtake me. So, and also about the pace, I was pushing as much as possible. So, but he was there.
A good first stint from yourself, and then of course Raffaele taking over, really closing the gap on the McLaren. Finally found your way past, but very, very difficult towards the end there.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see the video again, but I mean, from my point of view, I mean, the track is quite narrow. The white Ferrari wanted to let me pass, I think, in the wrong moment when we were side by side with the McLaren. And then, I don't know, I got sandwiched between the two cars. I mean, I didn't want to push him out, of course. I'm not a dirty driver, I think. So, I mean, it's just unfortunate. I'm sorry for them. I mean, I didn't want to make contact, but the track is really narrow, and I mean, I know where to go, and then we'll see what's happening after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was the view from, I think, a very balanced point of view, actually, from Raffaele Marcello there.
I mean, when I've seen the images from the rear view, that was a different version of the head-on view, and I think both drivers, Raffaele Marcello and Oliver Wilkinson, would say when they see all those opportunities, all those images, that maybe it would be declared a racing incident. It's up to the stewards.
Totally up to the stewards. So people grabbing a little bit of food. Great to have the spectators here at Brands Hatch, and again, such an intimate section of the circuit around the start-finish straight, the hill up to Druids, and of course the South Bank. Drivers like to get in their cars, as John pointed out earlier, and honk their horns when after a race has been completed, but didn't feel quite the same this time around with the full course yellow conclusion. But drama from start to finish. We've got another hour of racing coming up this afternoon at Brands Hatch, and for Dries van Tor and Charles Weerts, they just got to keep on doing what they're doing. But plenty to analyse from that race, but the pace of the McLaren in the hands of Ben Barnicoat was absolutely astonishing. But he got clear, and the rest then were just embroiled in their own battles, and that's a dream situation for a driver.
Yeah, I mean, what Ben Barnicoat did was use the full capacity the McLaren gave him, and he pulled away by virtually a second a lap for his stint. And Timo Bogoslawski said himself, I was nervous at the start, and I mean, the McLaren was immediately on the tail of the Mercedes into turn 1 on the opening lap, and eventually found a way round Boguslawski up at Hawthorns, just simply because Boguslawski had taken the inside line to defend into Hawthorns, but it allowed Barnicoat to break that a little bit later and swoop around the front of the Mercedes. And once he was in the lead on that opening lap, he was up and gone. Then Boguslawski was able to consolidate. He drove a very good stint indeed once he got that confidence. But I think that confidence was in part due to the car, as I said during the commentary, probably slightly low tire pressure, slightly low tire temperatures, just a nervy, twitchy feeling car.
So out onto the podium, Maro Engel in third place, along with teammate Lucas Stoltz, who very nearly got into second place on that opening lap. And then at the pit stops, they got shuffled back to third as this crew, Charles Weerts and Dries van Toor. Dries slightly quicker out of the pit lane, WRT doing another fine pit stop. But up to the top step of the podium will come the winners of the two races here in the Sprint Cup at Brands Hatch. And that will be Raffaele Marcello and the driver who kicked off, Timo Boguslawski. Do come and join us for the second race. That was fun. So as the strains of the Marseillaise, the French national anthem, ring out for ACA ASP, a French team run by Jérôme Polican on the top step. We have Raffaele Marcello and Timo Boguslawski. And Timo very keen, clearly, to keep his suit nice and dry and not sprayed with champagne. And he nips off the podium very quickly indeed. In fact, that appears to be the modus operandi for all 6 drivers up there on the podium. We will have a Silver Cup podium as well, and also Pram 2. But top 3, we'll have plenty to talk about. Of course, the presentations will occur. I think maybe no spraying of champagne. I was slightly concerned that was about to go off there.
Yeah, I think somebody popped their cork a bit early.
And off they go. And we will wait for the Silver Cup and the Pro-Am podiums as well. And just to remind you that Ricardo Feller and Alex Fontana won the Silver Cup in 4th place overall. And the victors in Pro-Am, Barwell Motorsport, Enrique Chavez and Miguel Ramos. They will take home some trophies and some checks from Brands Hatch as well.
Real family day out here at Brands Hatch, isn't it? And very traditional bank holiday meeting. People delighted to be able to get out, to be free and enjoy the fresh air, principally.
Yeah,
even though there's a bit of CO2 in it, but that's all good CO2.
It's heady mix. It's a heady mix here. It's a cocktail at Brands Hatch. But now just waiting for the next podiums to come through. But it is a good day out, and it's lovely to see people at events again, particularly families bringing young children. They're the fans of, just becoming the fans of tomorrow, really, in so many ways. Mad Panda Motorsport, has to be them in their natty suits. Rick Breukers, Ezekiel Perez Companc coming out. They took 3rd place in the Silver Cup class. Frank Bird and Ryoichiro Tomita will be coming out into 2nd place in class, in 5th place overall. There's Frank, and the shorter figure of Ryoichiro Tomita. Now on the correct steps, up on the podium, and up to the top step will come our winners, Alex Fontana and Ricardo Feller. Victory for Emil Frey Racing.
I must say, a very welcome victory to the team that was virtually decimated just a month ago at Spa, with 2 cars completely destroyed and another car destroyed a month earlier during the pre-Spa 24-hour test.
Yeah, a very popular team as well. They seem to do their racing with a great deal of a big smile on their face, and listening to the mechanics that were coming in this morning, full of banter, and it's good because they would have had some really long sessions getting those cars rebuilt. And the Silver Cup, 4 drivers running with silver ranking, 2 silver ranking drivers, and another mix. So the Swiss national anthem for Emil Frey Racing. Belgian team WRT in second place, and running under the Spanish flag, Mad Panda Motorsport take third in class. That's the Silver Cup class, and there is champagne this time around from Emil Frey Racing, and I think really well deserved, and certainly saw some good overtaking from Riccardo Feller in the first part of the race, and they built on that thereafter. Alex Fontana bringing it home in fourth.
One of the problems for our events is there's a second race this afternoon. So none of the drivers are able to take a good old slug of the champagne sparkling wine. It might even be English sparkling wine. I'm not sure what the wine on the podium is.
If they're lucky. So waiting now for the Pro-Am podium. I'm sure we'll see great smiles there. 5 teams came out to fight their way. And the victory going to Mark Lemmer's team, Barwell Motorsport. Plenty of applause ringing across from the people on the opposite side from the pits. Podium just at the bottom of the race control tower, just literally bang on the start-finish line. And a lot of fans like to sit below the hospitality suites looking out across because they can get a good view up towards Druids, even the cars going up and coming down to the hairpin. And certainly that's one of the intimate elements of the bowl at Brands Hatch.
Well, it's a natural amphitheatre, and that's what's made this circuit such a popular circuit with race fans, because they get a great view of the majority, certainly of the Indy circuit. And then once you go out into the countryside, there's not a lot of viewing areas out there for spectators. It's always been this sort of amphitheatre that's been the focal point for race fans to congregate and to enjoy great racing.
And it certainly was exciting today. Garage 59 coming out in third place in the class, Alexander West and Johnny Adam. Second place, Andrea Bertolini and Louis Machiels. And on to the top step will go the Barwell Motorsport crew. Out they come, Enrique Chavez and Miguel Ramos. Victors in the Pro-Am class here at Brands Hatch. Very much appreciated by the fans. So it will be the British national anthem coming up for Barwell Motorsport. So with the national anthems under the way, the trophies, the podium ceremony pretty much over, and will the order be reshuffled for their second race this afternoon? But certainly for Barwell Motorsport, a job very well done. A lot to talk about, but Brands Hatch makes close racing. It's always been a factor. Let's take a look at the highlights, and a brilliant start from pole position by Timo Bogoslawski, but probably the best start came from third on the grid, moving into second place, Ben Barnicoat in the McLaren. Let's take a look from head on. Certainly the red nose of the Acura 88 Mercedes well out front, and then up the inside, Lukas Stoltz went inside Charles Weerts. So Weerts started second, was down to fourth, but this was the move of the race. Around the outside at Hawthorns, into the lead went Ben Barnicoat, and then a challenge for second place. Lukas Stoltz in the white Mercedes going to the outside, didn't quite work. Frank Bird very determined to gain positions. He was in the yellow striped Audi gaining places, dust being kicked up. Riccardo Feller pushing very hard behind Pierre-Alexandre Jean, then got side by side, almost touched on the start-finish straight, but a great bold manoeuvre, and up into fourth place overall went the Lamborghini. Then it was a pit stop. Louis Machiels just pulled a little bit too far down the pit lane, and then the release. The cars that came in second, third and fourth were really, really tight, but the car that came in fourth, that's the number 32 Audi, emerged in third, and just out the back of the track, a few cars starting to run off the circuit, and then the McLaren, the last car in, with a huge lead built up by Ben Barnicoat, and handed over to Ollie Wilkinson. But the story of the rest of the race was what was going to happen with Raffaele Marciello as he started to chase down. He was in second place and he was closing all the time. A bit of an off-track moment for the Team Allied Racing Porsche that did regain the circuit, and that was Klaus Bachler. And then Marciello right onto the tail of Ben Barnicoat. He was there for lap after lap. Look, he got his nose in front, but he was on the outside line, on the dirty line. Lost ground, and Dries van Tor right onto his tail. And then this unfortunate moment, trying to overtake the back marker, Giorgio Roda. The McLaren went sideways over the barriers. Oliver Wilkinson was fine, and the race ended under full course yellow with victory to Marciello.